Today's report from the UN on the Rohingya crisis makes some weighty, though not new, accusations. Among them, mass murder, gang rape, child abuse. The report says Myanmar's treatment of its Muslim minority group amounts to genocide. For more on this, I want to bring in Farid Khan. He's a director of the Rohingya Human Rights Network. He's in Ottawa joining me. Thank you, Farid, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to me about what you feel the impact of this UN report might be in the long run.
Well, in the long run, I think it's the start of a process to bring justice to the Rohingya victims in Myanmar. The process obviously is going to take some time, but we needed to take this first step, and the UN is the first international body of any importance that has actually used the word genocide, because we in the Rohingya Human Rights Network and other human rights advocates have been calling on the Canadian government to lead in the international community and declare what happened to the Rohingya a genocide.
You say it's the start of a process. There are 6 military commanders who are named in this report. What do you envision is, I guess, potential punishment down the line? I mean, will they ever go to trial, do you think?
Well, if we want to look at the example of what happened with the Balkans War, some of those perpetrators of atrocities and genocide and war crimes, they managed to hide from international justice for some time, but they eventually did get caught. They went to trial, and at least I think the last trial was Radovan Karadzic, and he's sitting in jail in The Hague right now. He was convicted. So there is optimism on that front that these leaders will eventually see the inside of a courtroom, and hopefully civilian leaders as well, because this happened under civilian leadership, even though the atrocities themselves were committed by the military.
And the report is clear that nothing could justify the treatment, the mass murder, gang rape, child abuse that is outlined in this report, but security was the initial excuse that was given for what was being done. And we did play before the break the clip from the leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, talking about that security issue. You followed this closely. I'm wondering, do you know more specifically what that security issue was that led to all of this?
Well, the allegation was that there was a Rohingya, they labeled a Rohingya terrorist group that attacked some stations, police stations, and this was the response. However, those allegations have never been proven. There's been no independent verification that those attacks actually took place. Additionally, in July, the rights group Fortify Rights released a very comprehensive report that provided evidence that showed that the Rohingya military began setting up the precursor to the military operation a year before the attacks took place in August 2017. So that's like in August 2016, they started taking steps. They did things like they removed things that could be used as weapons from the villagers. They started mowing down areas of vegetation so they could have more easy access to the places where the Rohingya populations lived. So these are not, these are not haphazard actions. These display a concerted and planned effort to eventually attack the Rohingya, and all the details are outlined in that Fortify Rights report.
So now, sticking with Aung San Suu Kyi, who is the leader in Myanmar, we have a clip from Bob Rae that was played on Power and Politics, and I'd like to play that for you because, of course, and you know this, Canada has granted honorary citizenship to her. Let's listen to what Bob Rae has to say.
Kofi Annan said to me when I met with him in the spring, he said, the trouble that Aung San Suu Kyi faces is that everybody thought she was a saint, and she's really just a politician. And I think that's something we're all having to come to terms with. I certainly don't think what's happened has contributed to her overall reputation.
So what would you like to see? I mean, we're talking about possible repercussions on many levels. What would you like to see Canada do here in terms of that honorary citizenship?
Well, I think the honorary citizenship is pretty much a meaningless issue now. Back in September of last year, I launched a petition which garnered over 50,000 signatures calling on the Canadian government to remove the honorary citizenship as a symbolic act. But symbolic acts aren't really effective now that the evidence has come out and that it has been declared a genocide by the UN. With respect to Aung San Suu Kyi, when the federal government was approached about removing her citizenship, the response we got was that a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, and that there was not going to be any action to remove that honor. So that being the case, let's charge Aung San Suu Kyi in Canada under Canada's War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity Act. And one of the provisions of that act is that anybody, whether through action or through inaction that allows war crimes or atrocities to be committed, should be charged, and that's any Canadian. So given that she is an honorary Canadian, let's charge her under that act, and let's let the chips fall where they may, because the thing is that the process of going to the ICC is a long process, as Mr. Ray mentioned in his interviews earlier today. It is a long process, but this process of being able to charge Aung San Suu Kyi in Canada under Canadian law is not.
You talk about the ICC, the International Criminal Court is what you're talking about, and
Yes,
it being a
yes.
long process to get to that point. When you say long, I mean, how long are you talking about?
Well, I mean, all we have to do is once again look at the issue with the Balkans War. It took over 10 years to eventually find justice for the victims by convicting the perpetrators of the genocide in the Balkans War. The other thing is that everyone is focusing on the International Criminal Court, but they are forgetting that there is a parallel process that can be taken through the International Court of Justice. And it's similar to, for example, in Canada, where you have one level of court that deals with criminal issues and another level of court which deals with civil issues. And that's another avenue that could be taken where there could be a case filed for reparations against Myanmar, against the state, in the International Court of Justice, so that those 720,000 plus Rohingya and the ones who fled before them, whose lands were stolen, whose livelihoods were destroyed, whose homes were destroyed, can actually get some compensation so they can start building their lives again. So I think that there needs to be a two-pronged approach. One is to go after the perpetrators of the crimes, but the second prong would be to seek compensation for the victims of the crimes.
Fareed, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.
It's Fareed Khan, a director of the Rohingya Human Rights Network in Ottawa.